When a 1970s A-10 Warthog showed up low and slow, circling over the Strait of Hormuz, it didn't look like a threat. To Iran, it looked like an opportunity, an easy target, something they could take down. That was the miscalculation. Because under Operation Epic Fury, that tank killer didn't just survive, it flipped the fight, turning from target into hunter, and breaking Iran's Strait of Hormuz blockade from the inside out. Nearly 20 million barrels of oil a day, roughly 1/5 of global consumption, flows through this narrow corridor, barely 21 miles wide at its tightest point, with only 2-mile shipping lanes in each direction. When Iran imposed a de facto denial strategy, commercial traffic dropped from over 100 transits a day to fewer than 10. Insurers pulled coverage, and freight rates surged. Oil prices spiked past $100 per barrel, with futures markets projecting $150 to $180 if disruption persisted. At that point, this wasn't just military escalation, it was systemic economic pressure on the entire global supply chain. What made this battlefield uniquely difficult was not firepower, but ambiguity. The Strait of Hormuz is a dense littoral battle space filled with fishing dhows, coastal traffic, and shallow water channels that restrict maneuvering. Iran's naval doctrine, particularly that of the IRGC Navy, is built around asymmetric denial. Instead of deploying large warships, they rely on fast inshore attack craft, FIAC, small mine layers, and mobile drone launch units. These assets are cheap, numerous, and difficult to track. A single FIAC can carry rockets, machine guns, or even anti-ship missiles, while mine layers can deploy naval mines capable of disabling tankers weighing over 300,000 tons. Modern influence mines can be triggered by magnetic, acoustic, or pressure signatures, making them extremely difficult to detect and clear. Once deployed, even a small minefield can shut down shipping entirely. After each engagement, these assets don't hold ground. They disappear. The Iranian coastline along the strait is filled with coves, ports like Bandar Lungay and Keshem Island, and civilian maritime clutter. Boats blend into traffic. Drone teams relocate within minutes. Coastal batteries engage and relocate. This creates a constant hide, engage, hide cycle. Compounding this threat is the widespread use of manpads like the Misag-2 and small-caliber anti-aircraft guns mounted on boats. These systems are not sophisticated individually, but in large numbers, they create a dangerous, low-altitude environment. This is what makes the strait a denial zone rather than a battlefield. Now, here's where conventional thinking fails. High-end platforms like the F-35 or F-15 are optimized for high-speed, high-altitude warfare. At speeds exceeding 500 knots, target identification becomes extremely difficult, especially against small, maneuvering boats. Their sensor suites are powerful, but even advanced radar struggles to distinguish between hostile and civilian vessels in dense maritime traffic. Additionally, deploying a $100 million stealth aircraft to destroy a $50,000 boat is economically inefficient. This is not a stealth problem. This is a persistence problem. The requirement here is not speed, it is time on station, visual identification, and repeat engagement capability. That's why the mission shifted. The objective was no longer just to strike Iranian infrastructure, but to dismantle the blockade system itself. This required disabling the entire network: the boats, the mines, the launch platforms, and the supporting radar systems. The turning point came between March 17th and March 22nd. On March 17th, US forces initiated deep strikes using GBU-72 advanced 5K penetrator bombs, each weighing approximately 5,000 pounds. These were used against hardened underground facilities, housing anti-ship cruise missiles like the Noor and Qadr systems, as well as radar relay stations embedded in coastal mountains. By targeting these nodes, the US significantly reduced Iran's maritime surveillance capability, limiting its ability to track and target commercial shipping. By March 18th, over 120 Iranian vessels had been reported damaged or disabled, but the swarm threat persisted. Then, on March 19th, the operational shift became clear. The A-10 Warthog was deployed not as close air support, but as a dedicated maritime interdiction platform. Operating out of Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan, A-10s began flying extended sorties into the Gulf. These missions were supported by KC-135 Stratotankers and KC-46 Pegasus refuelers, allowing aircraft to remain on station for over 4 hours. This endurance is critical. Swarm tactics rely on timing and gaps. A persistent aircraft removes those gaps. A typical mission begins with the A-10 entering the battle space already linked into Link 16 data networks, receiving real-time targeting information from E-3 AWACS aircraft, Navy destroyers, and surveillance drones. Despite lacking an onboard radar, the A-10 compensates with LITENING targeting pods, which provide high-resolution infrared and electro-optical imagery. Once queued, the pilot descends below 1,000 feet, where visual identification becomes possible. This is where the A-10 excels. Its straight-wing design allows stable, low-speed flight, giving pilots the ability to track small boats visually, observe behavior patterns, and distinguish hostile intent. The aircraft's survivability is equally critical. The A-10 features a 1,200-pound titanium bathtub protecting the cockpit, along with redundant hydraulic systems and manual flight controls. It is designed to sustain damage and continue flying, a necessity in an environment saturated with small arms fire and manpads. This durability allows it to remain in contested airspace longer than most aircraft, maintaining continuous pressure on hostile assets. The primary weapon in this role is the GAU-8/A Avenger 30mm cannon, firing at a rate of 3,900 rounds per minute. Each round exits the barrel at over 1,000 meters per second, carrying enough kinetic energy to penetrate engine blocks and ignite fuel stores. Against FIACs constructed from fiberglass or light aluminum, the effect is catastrophic. A single burst can disable a vessel almost instantly. This makes the GAU-8 uniquely suited for counter-swarm operations, where rapid, repeated engagements are required. For targets requiring precision or standoff engagement, the A-10 employs APKWS 2 laser-guided rockets and AGM-65 Maverick missiles. The APKWS transforms standard 70mm rockets into precision-guided munitions, allowing pilots to engage individual boats with minimal collateral risk. This is especially important in crowded shipping lanes. The Maverick, with its infrared or electro-optical guidance, is used against larger vessels such as minelayers, locking onto heat signatures and delivering a high-impact payload capable of disabling the target. These operations are part of a broader joint force strategy. Independence-class littoral combat ships, LCS, such as the USS Santa Barbara, conduct mine countermeasure operations and local surface warfare. However, they are vulnerable to swarm tactics. The A-10 provides overwatch, engaging threats before they reach the ship's defensive perimeter. Meanwhile, AH-64 Apache helicopters operate closer to shore, intercepting drones and smaller reconnaissance craft. Equipped with radar, Hellfire missiles, and 30mm chain guns, Apaches are particularly effective against low-altitude drone threats that evade traditional air defense systems. By March 20th, the cumulative effect of these operations became clear. Iranian naval activity dropped sharply. Swarm operations decreased in frequency and coordination. Mine-laying activity was disrupted, with at least 44 mine-laying vessels neutralized. Coastal radar networks were degraded, reducing Iran's situational awareness. The strait began to stabilize, not because the threat was eliminated, but because the system enforcing it had been dismantled. As of March 22nd, A-10s from the 75th Expeditionary Fighter Squadron continue to patrol the southern flank, supported by a network of air and naval assets. The blockade has been degraded, but not entirely eliminated. The strait remains contested, but navigable. And at the center of this shift is an aircraft many considered obsolete, the A-10, an aircraft designed in the Cold War for close air support against Soviet armor. So here's the real question. If an outdated A-10 can walk into the world's most dangerous choke point and take control of it, what does that say about any force thinking it can challenge the United States? Let me know in the comments. If you stand with American strength, share this video, give it a hype, and subscribe for more. And if you watched till the end, respect.